All right, Kyle from Old Me Reviews. I'm doing now part 3 because I got interrupted by my cell phone by the fiance. Anyway, so I was talking about Octavarium, and so yeah, Root of All Evil is a good song, but I don't like it as much as This Dying Soul, and definitely not as much as The Glass Prison. But of course, the highlights on this record, Octavarium, to me, which you can see the book. I suppose I could show that a little bit. The highlight is obviously the title track, which is a 25-minute epic that I think of probably as much for the different references to different progressive rock bands. Let me just fix that. And like the lyrics or song titles, little phrases between like Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody, I think it was. Yeah, and Supper's Ready from Genesis, and I don't remember. I think there's a reference to Yes in there, and maybe Rush, Zeppelin. I forget. There's Pink Floyd, definitely. I mean, the whole continuum thing that Jordan's using definitely is channeling Floyd, but I think there might be an actual like Echoes. I forget which one, either Echoes or one of the other kind of maybe Shine On You Crazy Diamond. There's definitely some references, but the middle section and that fun little playful section with the continuum, probably my favorite parts of Octavarium. I know that a lot of people regard Octavarium as one of, if not the best Dream Theater song. I wouldn't say that personally. In fact, I probably wouldn't even put. It might make my top 10. I think when I did a thing on React to Watch Mojo's Dream Theater top 10 Dream Theater songs. I may have included her as an honorable mention. It's on the border. I mean, it's a very good epic. One of the better songs they've written in the last 15 years, certainly, and the best song on this record in my mind. The other track, though, on this record that I think really gets frequently overlooked that I really enjoy is These Walls. I don't know why, but it has this kind of riff and chorus that kind of goes back and forth from memory. But anyway, Octavarium has a lot of good songs on it. It's kind of, to me, starting with this record, became sort of the common, my take on it commonly with every record they've put out from this point on, where some good songs, the record as a whole I didn't love. I liked parts, a lot of it, but I don't necessarily love the whole thing, as opposed to, say, Awake or Scenes from Memory or Images and Words or 6 Degrees of Inner Turbulence, of course. So, all right, then they, of course, released probably the most looked down upon record, at least for a while, and I'll admit that, because I was still the fanboy, and I ended up getting one of the special editions of this, Systematic Chaos, which I guess ranking all Dream Theater records, this would not be in the upper half. It would be probably in the lower half, but I don't know if I would put it last. But it still has a fair amount of good music, like Octavarium. I would say the first part of it, In the Presence of Enemies, the build-up in that song is tremendous. Although I haven't listened to it in a number of years, but that's probably my favorite part of this record. Let's see here. Here's the artwork, which I probably looked at all of once or twice. Anyway, another one of the songs on this record that I actually really enjoy, even though it does sound like music a fair amount, is Prophets of War. I know people give the lyrics crap for that song, but it's a catchy track, and has a catchy riff. And I always thought that it should be played live, and I'm not sure, it probably has been played live a little bit, but not nearly as much. It sounds like a song that would really do well live with a ruckus crowd. It actually probably would do better either somewhere in South America or in Europe rather than the United States, when the crowds are way more animated in other parts of the world rather than the U.S. But my least favorite song is The Dark Eternal Night. I know people praise that song oftentimes, the time signatures and stuff, but there's a cheese factor that I just can't get into that song, even though I do like the video, but the song itself doesn't do much for me. Forsaken, Constant Motion is catchy enough, although I kind of look at that similar to As I Am, but not quite as good. That's obviously a song that's... Portnoy talked about doing a million different things, different bands, different hobbies and everything like that, and he talked about never stopping, so the phrase Constant Motion came up a lot, so that's how where the name came from. Ministry of Lost Souls, In the Presence of Enemies 2, Part 2, Repentance, the idea is interesting, but it just, even though you got a bunch of guests to do little voices about, asking for or apologizing, that kind of thing, or asking for forgiveness. I forget what it exactly is. So, you know, and Forsaken I think isn't a bad song. The video looks all gothic about a vampire. But, you know, as a whole, you know, Systematic Chaos, as much as I'm a Dream Theater fan, I probably always will be a Dream Theater fan, is not a go-to record for me, and I would put every record ahead of it. Like, I'd put Octavarium ahead of it, and certainly Train of Thought, but still has a lot of good music on it. And then, of course, the final record with Mike Portnoy, Black Clouds and Silver Linings, which it kind of ended the whole pattern of releasing a black artwork album and then like a sort of a light or colorful album. They kind of had this pattern. This is the second consecutive record they use largely black artwork or darker artwork and darker in theme. But I would say that this is a better record than Systematic Chaos. Not by leaps and bounds, but it's a record I prefer to Systematic Chaos. I would say largely for two tracks. The Count of Tuscany, the 19-minute epic, while some people really accuse the lyrics as being cheesy and sort of far-fetched and just a kind of a silly story, I don't really. I get within the lyrics some of the sort of human relationships and sort of thoughts that go through some of the lyrics. Sort of wondering about what situation you're in, what's going on with my life, that kind of thing. All within that tale. But I think largely also the song just works as a movement epic. And there's a few really, really head-banging, catchy riffs. There's some very melodic, beautiful, almost melancholy moments. And it's one of the best songs they've written. As opposed to Octavarium, I love Octavarium, but I would say they one-upped it with Count Tuscany. It's a better composed epic even over Octavarium. But you're splitting hairs. I'm talking about the Dream Theater songs I really love. I really do love both those songs. And then I would also add The Best of Times, the previous track, which is, I remember thinking when I heard that it sounded like something they wrote in the 90s. Of course, it's about Mike Portnoy's father, his last days, you know, with him, the memories that he had with him. They reference Harold and Maude and his just experiences with him, and it's just a great melodic song. It's got its sad moments, of course, because it is about a sad situation, but it's also very happy and majestic and melodic. It just has a very good up-tempo beat at points. It has up-tempo beats. The rest of this record, though, Nightmare to Remember, The Rite of Passage. I'm going to just take a look at the vinyls, the actual records. Nightmare to Remember and Rite of Passage I kind of look at as about equal. They have their moments, but of course people criticize Mike Portnoy for doing some sort of harsh, extreme vocals or growling vocals, which I honestly didn't mind it. I mean, they didn't last that long. This is just standard black vinyl, looks like 180 gram. But yeah, I mean, I think those are sort of Dream Theater by the numbers songs. I mean, they're sort of darker in sort of lyrics. But I mean, they're not great. They're not amazing songs, but yeah, within the record they're okay. Shattered Fortress and Wither and Shattered Fortress. Shattered Fortress, I don't know. I would say that it's another part of the I didn't even mention that. I don't think I did I? Because Repentance was part of the 12-step suite as well. On Systematic Chaos. Just continuing, I believe the Shattered Fortress was the last step of the 12-step suite of whatever it was, 5 songs. This is probably my least favorite, even though it sort of references a bunch of them at once. It's sort of too overt to me, and so it doesn't really. I don't really get that much from that track. And Wither is just a sort of a ballad. So while I think they improved the record, it was an improvement on Systematic Chaos. It's not dramatic, but it's the last record with Mike Portnoy. I'd say they haven't put a record out I prefer since then. So now talking about the 2 albums they've released since Mike Portnoy left, Dramatic Turn of Events. Honestly, I did enjoy it in 2011 when it came out. Mike Bengini's obviously a well-skilled musician who can play, as technical as any drummer out there, at least for what Dream Theater needs. And he didn't even write any of the music, of course. The music, had some moments. I'm just to name some of my favorites on there. There's 2 or 3 tracks and I'm not even remembering it. That's how memorable it is, of course, to me. Let's see, just let me Outcry, and The Backs of Angels, which was a Grammy nominated track, it was a single, and Breaking All Illusions. Those were I think the three tracks. I remember there's some unison sections. I think it's an Outcry, and maybe Breaking All Illusions. Lost, Not Forgotten. You know, some of these songs, Build Me Up, Break Me Down, I know was kind of criticized. But I mean, at this point, I was kind of just like, I'll check it out. Certainly, Portnoy's not in the band. Probably gonna like some songs just like the last few records, but maybe not the whole thing. And you know, as a whole, I think it was very well received. People were wondering what their music would be like without Mike Portnoy, and I thought it was good. I mean, I thought it was maybe slightly better in some respects, and that it didn't have any songs I really was turned off by. But as a whole, it wasn't dramatically better. It was sort of just almost predictable in a sense. But, you know, it still had 3 or 4 songs or about 30 minutes worth of music that I would say, you know, works within the Dream Theater history and among the better music they've written. And I was certainly happy to see they put out a new record that was good, and having Portnoy leave wasn't going to be certain about that. So then, of course, they released the self-titled album after that in 2013 it was. And I'll be completely honest, I think I listened to it once. I did see them live. I remember that Epic, which I bought. I know it's over on the shelf there, I believe. The picture disc, which was released on, I think it was Record Store Day in 2014, for the Epic Illumination Theory. But honestly, when I tried listening to Illumination Theory, it had some moments, but it went on for so long, and I struggled with it. And the whole album I actually struggled with for the most part. And it's kind of ironic how maybe the self-titled Dream Theater album, a band who I've been a fan of for 20 years, I know the least about, and I probably, you know, I might consider one of my least favorites. I don't know. But then again, I haven't listened to it that much, and I've had the motivation to listen because there's too much other music I want to use my time on. And, you know, the history doesn't you know, it speaks for itself. Every Dream Theater album, it seems like I like a few songs. Ever since basically Octavarium, I like a few songs. A few songs I really just get bored with. I think go on too long. Or, like for example, Jordan Rudess's keyboard patches kind of they kind of bug me at times. I wish he'd use more piano. I've said that for a while, and I said that like a lot of the fans have wanted them to work with a producer. It probably never will happen. That's what they want to do. They're happy just producing their own albums. Or now Petrucci, basically, it's Petrucci and Portnoy. Now it's Petrucci, but it just would be curious if they could actually work with someone like David Bottrill or Rick Rubin, for that matter, someone else, just to get a different ear in there. And, you know, they should do 2 albums, one like that, and then one of their own. They could release 2 different versions. You know, it'd be funny to see the reaction and which one the fans prefer. But I guess time is money, and they just have never really wanted to work with an outside producer since Falling Into Infinity. But, yeah, the self-titled album, I know that The Enemy Inside, I do remember that track. That song got nominated for a Grammy, and it was just like the previous record that had the Grammy-nominated track. It was a catchy enough song. It wasn't so excessive, but, you know, it hasn't really resonated with me for the 7, 8, 9 times I heard it. I think I remember liking it more live, but, I mean, the rest of this track list, Surrender to Reason, Behind the Veil, The Bigger Picture I do remember, Enigma Machine, which is an instrumental, The Looking Glass, and The False Awakening Suite. I mean, and Along for the Ride. I mean, I'm almost embarrassed to say, you know, more than half those songs, if you played me, you know, a minute and a half from them, I probably wouldn't be able to distinguish them because I didn't spend a lot of time with it, and it's to me, it was sort of like, time is too valuable to invest with these guys, but at some point I probably will go back to it and see what I think. And then, of course, they have this double 39-track or whatever fantasy-based concept album called The Astonishing that's going to be released in a little over a month. They're going to play the whole thing live. I don't know how long it is exactly. We're probably close to 2 hours. I think it's feast or famine for the most part, although based on the pattern with my own taste with Dream Theater, it wouldn't shock me for me to like, you know, about half of it or a little more, and then the rest of it just, I don't necessarily need to go back to frequently, even though I'm one who loves to listen to albums to hear music within the album as opposed to individually. So, but that's my take on Dream Theater. Maybe I'll do live albums at some point, and maybe show more of my rarities collection, and then I might even do more in depth. Although I don't know if I will try to do more in depth album reviews. We'll see, I guess. But thank you for watching.